Would you invest in real estate if you knew your rental income was guaranteed? Find out how coming up next. Hey, it's Yama. Welcome to the Section 8 Sensei. Today I'm going to show you how to get into an investment where your rental income is actually guaranteed. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications, and get ready to learn how to make some money. All right, so let's just do a real quick background on Section 8. Section 8 is a federal program that was started by HUD in '74, and it is a rental subsidy program. So it helps people with low income afford to rent. So what happens is there's an exchange to the point of 2.2 million people in 2022 that are on these subsidies. And essentially what happens is these subsidies are given to the landlord plus a portion that's given by the tenant. So the tenant could be at $0 or they could be at some percentage of the rent, but the remainder that comes from the city goes directly to the landlord and is guaranteed. So that's the greatest part about it. This is not a slumlord program. So HUD requires in order to get the money that you get a clean, safe, environment for the tenant. So they expect them to have a high level of living when they're being subsidized into this program. All right, so before we get into the nuts and bolts of this thing, do me a favor and in the comment section below, let me know what you think the number one reason is that people don't invest in real estate. I mean, we all know it goes up, so it's not that, but there's something holding people back with investing in real estate. So leave me something in the comments below and let me know what you think it is that's the biggest deterrent or obstacle for investors to jump into the space and become profitable. All right, so what we want to go through is some myths or some, just things that I think are on the street that people kind of take as fact about the Section 8 program. It's kind of the stereotype and the 10,000 foot view that people maybe have coming out of the chute. So we just want to clear some of these things up because we definitely don't want people operating with bad information. And so I think if we can clarify some of these things and kind of get down to the realities of some of this, I think everybody will be able to make better decisions and, make more profitable decisions based on 100% of the facts versus a bunch of myths and misnomers. So the first one we have is tenants won't take care of my property. The fact that they're Section 8 or not Section 8 really has nothing to do with whether they're going to take care of your property or not. Some people are very clean and tidy. Some people are slobs, and you just don't know what you're going to get until you get it. So it really has nothing to do with the Section 8. It really has to do with, is somebody a slob or are they somebody that takes care of their belongings and keeps things clean and, does all of those things within their normal scope of their life. All right, number 2, renting to Section 8 tenants will deter other renters. All right, so keep in mind that there's no, neon light or sticker on the wall or bumper sticker or anything that tells everybody in the world that somebody is a Section 8 voucher holder. So there's no list, there's no public anything that tells them. So there's really no way to know. The person who lives next door to you now could be a Section 8 tenant and you would never know. So just kind of something to think about there that there's no connection or anything. So all of that information is extremely private. And so none of that's ever going to play a part in what happens to your property. All right, number 3, rent rates to Section 8 are lower than market. Okay, this may happen, but I can tell you this. If you know what you're doing and you follow the plan, especially the one that we do, that will never happen to you. Because, for example, in our world, we don't take any properties and put tenants in them in places where we can't see a minimum of a 20% spread between the debt service and the rental income. So for us, that's 180 degrees false, okay? Now, I have seen people who go into Section 8, but because they buy in the wrong area, they're renting to the wrong tenants, they don't know how the voucher system works and how payment standards are established, et cetera, they get probably at market or lower than market rents, and they're really just chasing the guarantee more than they are the money. So it is possible that could happen, but that's because they're not using the program the way that it's meant to be used from a landlord perspective, and they're not taking advantages of all the benefits, and they're definitely misinformed because they never should have a property or a tenant in that situation to begin with. All right, number 4, Section 8 tenants have no incentive to pay rent. All right, so this is actually pretty much the opposite. So remember, the voucher program is a support system. It's free money as long as the people qualify. So they have what's called the tenant portion of the rent that they pay. So let's say you have $1,000 in rent, they could have, anywhere from $0 to $500-$600, whatever, depending on their income. But a lot of times when you choose your tenants, you're going to end up with people who are on the lower end. So we have some properties that, might rent for $3,000 a month and the tenant is responsible for $50 or $100 and that's it. So if you were in that situation and that's all you had to pay to live in a $3,000 a month property, it's not real intelligent that you would try to screw that up by destroying the property, violating your lease, or not paying your tenant portion of rent. So they absolutely have a reason to pay the rent, and they're incentivized to do so because they're on the program. And you actually have a little bit of leverage because if they violate the lease by either destroying your property or non-payment, they could lose their voucher. They can't just skip from your house to somebody else's and start all over again. If they violate and they get evicted or whatever in your lease, they could lose their voucher going into the next property. All right, number 5, no control over Section 8 tenant chosen. Okay, so this is a little bit of misinformation. What this is getting at is saying that, hey, if I go into the Section 8 program, I'm just going to get the hand I'm dealt with, and whoever the tenant is going to be chosen for me, and I'm going to have no say-so. That's not true. As the landlord, you have 100% choice of who you can put in there. And in fact, the PHA housing agencies are actually forbidden from steering clients to certain landlords. So they can't even, so if you call up and say, hey, I have a 3-bedroom property, blah, 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 here's my amenities, do you have anybody for me? They're actually not allowed to direct you to anybody. So just keep that in mind. You 100% have the choice of who the person is. You can do whatever background screening you want, whatever, just make sure it's consistent for every tenant you have, Section 8 or non. But you can put them through any type of, background or investigation or whatever you want to vet them out, however you want to vet them. But you always have 100% choice of who goes in your property. Okay, number 6, Section 8 tenants will attract crime. The Section 8 tenants, when they get into the voucher program, have to go through a background check. So they're going to be screened for felonies or misdemeanors or anything in the background check criminally they want to know. If they have that on their record, they won't qualify for the voucher program. So that's number 1. 2, so unless they've slid under the radar on all that and they're a criminal and, they're a drug dealer or a prostitute or something like that, and somehow that slipped through the cracks, which, we've never seen before, but I guess is possible. You're not going to be in a situation where, the Section 8 tenant themselves is bringing some sort of criminal activity to wherever it is. So most of the time we always tell people, hey, look, if you buy a property that's in a place that's got a high crime rate, then that's what it is. But that's not because of Section 8 tenant or wherever they are. If you buy a property that's in a non-high, not in a high crime rate area, then, it's probably going to stay that way. So the Section 8 tenant is not going to vary that, whatever situation you're in, one direction or the other. They're just going to live within whatever the situation actually is. All right, number 7, if my property is Section 8, I always have to rent to Section 8 tenants. Okay, remember, the property is not Section 8. It's the tenant that's a Section 8 voucher holder. Okay, that's, I think, the big mistake that people make or misunderstanding that they have is just because you put a property into the Section 8 system where you have a Section 8 tenant, you can take, at the time that property leases up, you can roll from a Section 8 to a non-Section 8 and then back and forth and do whatever you want. The property is not handcuffed into the Section 8 program once you jump into it. It only has to do with the tenant on the voucher system. So there's no connection between your ability to move in and out of the system at whatever point you want when your leases are up and rent to whoever you want. Number 8, it's too much of a hassle. Just like anything that's worth it, it does require a little bit of effort. Okay. Now, I believe that your high side and your benefit outraise your workload and your risk. Okay. And obviously it's a little overwhelming if you are first starting out and you don't know what you're doing, which is why we're trying to help you through this process so it makes sense and it's very systematic for you. You'll get better and better as you get more properties and go through more leases, but it's definitely worth it at the end, because if you go out and you're just renting to a regular person and you're at market or below market rents and you have no protection because your rents aren't guaranteed and all these things happen, there's some risk in that. It may be quote unquote easier, but it's still risky. So this gives you a little bit of peace of mind and a little bit of stability, and eliminates some of that risk by having the rents being guaranteed. So those are all things that you want to think about as you kind of go. So kind of take a look at the list again here. Here's a list again of all of them. And I think, we talked about, kind of where these things have gone sideways. And so, I think it's important to make sure that you address these for what they are and really find out the truth, because I think you'll make some better decisions. So there's a couple of challenges that kind of are in the space right now as far as Section 8 goes. So the big problem is obviously in general, the markets have a lack of housing, right? So just in general, there are more people that need to live somewhere than there are places to live. So that's just a global problem we have across the board, which is why you're seeing families combine into one property versus two, or these types of things, people living at home longer, et cetera, et cetera. There's just an overall shortage of housing. So what puts pressure on the system is there's actually more vouchers that are looking for properties than there are properties to rent to those people. And because of the myths and some of these other things, a lot of, if you and I were just to go out and look for a property to rent, we would have a choice of pretty much any property we want, assuming we pass the credit check and the income check and all that. Well, a majority of those properties, if I were to apply and say, hey, I'm a Section 8 voucher holder, a lot of landlords just wouldn't accept it and they would basically ignore my application. So the amount of vouchers that are out there, or Section 8 tenants looking for properties, they have much smaller choice, because there's only a certain amount of landlords that will accept that. So it's a little bit different than, like, let's say you had like food stamps as a subsidy for food. Well, every grocery store is required to accept the food stamp. Well, when you come to Section 8, not every landlord is required to accept the voucher. So that's a big problem when it comes to the shortage. The other problem is that rents in general have risen, over the last 40, 50 years at about 9% a year. So because of that, the affordability is kind of out the window, which is why this program is so important, because a lot of the people in the Section 8 program are single moms, a lot of kids. And so, you have all these younger kids that need housing. There's a lot of times there's no father figure, et cetera, et cetera. So you want to make sure that, if you're doing this type of thing, you can feel good about what you're doing, because you're helping, lower income people that really need help, get into their housing and stuff. The benefits are really pretty simple. From the landlord perspective, anytime you can lock down rent, no matter what it is, but at least know that it's coming, or the majority of it is coming, and there's not a risk for the payment not being made, especially when you have debt service, that's a huge, huge benefit for you as a landlord. Call it from a business standpoint, investor standpoint, or just peace of mind. It's a great thing to have. The tenant's benefit is clear. If I can't afford more than $500 a month, I'm going to have a hard time putting a roof over my family of 5. So if I can get a subsidy and end up renting a house for $3,000 a month that I only pay $500 for, that's going to change the life of everybody under that roof. So those are really the two benefits that you have in the space there, and what drives the program. All right, so I hope that gave you a little bit of background on Section 8, some of the myths, some of the truths, some of the things that are made up in people's heads, and you kind of see that the program does have a need. It does serve a purpose. If you're going to do something, you might as well do good. So all of those things matter in this situation. So we're going to continue to post videos on it, different aspects of it. Hopefully it's something that you think you can take advantage of and try to be part of the solution that's out there. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, forward to somebody that you think might be interested in the Section 8 program. All my contact info is in the description below. If you have questions, you need help with trying to finance some of this stuff and try to figure out how to get off the ground, feel free to reach out anytime, and we'll talk to you soon.